Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode. So I'm sitting here drinking my coffee. My big 90-pound dog is next to me, and just wanted to answer some questions. These are questions that I get regularly, and it was one that was posed by a client who just started a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was really interesting. She said, I've got this exact goal, and I know it's that I got to lose 2 pounds per week in order to hit that, and I know that's the standard anyways. And then just the way that she said that, the standard anyways. And so I inquired about it. And I was like, hey, what do you mean that's the standard anyways? She's like, well, yeah, you should be able to lose 2 pounds per week. And I'm like, that's interesting. Where did you hear that? She's like, I just don't know. It's what I've always been told. And the reason I found it interesting was because that's kind of what was ingrained in my head. So whether it's a myth, whether it's coming from multiple resources, and it's just kind of what the standard is said, and it's something that we both had, and I've heard multiple people say that, yeah, you should lose about 2 pounds per week. It's not too aggressive. It's right there, maybe 1 to 2. But the interesting thing is that that's just focusing on weight loss. Yes, you can lose 2 pounds per week, and we had this long talk and figured out exactly what we were going to strive for more than anything else. And I have long since ditched that kind of 2 pound standard in my head. But I just thought it was still interesting that did spark a memory of like, yeah, that's what was programmed originally in my head, right? It's kind of like the whole got to eat your Wheaties for breakfast to get your fiber. And we know that there's probably much better options to get a variety of nutrients in the morning than just like Wheaties cereal. But it's those kind of things that get programmed in our heads, right? From who knows where, right? Mostly probably marketing and commercial agents that are trying to sell us stuff that we don't need. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of cover that, right? It's like, how much should you lose per week? Like, what is helpful? And what I like to focus on more than anything else is fat loss. Where can we aim or strive to achieve from a fat loss standpoint, not necessarily a weight standpoint? Because I'll be honest, we could cut water weight and you could drop 2 pounds easily by tomorrow. And on an average, like we usually do see, if you track your weight on a daily basis, a fluctuation between 2 to 5 pounds. I just went on a hike this past Sunday that was a pretty challenging one. And I weigh myself quite frequently just because I like to see it. The scale doesn't play any kind of mental role for me. If it does, I do challenge you to find a healthier way and other metrics to track or set the right standards for yourself so you're not being affected by it. It's for another talk. But a difference of 5 pounds, and I was drinking a lot of liquid, and it just comes from that different level of exertion that happens, from that. But you could eat a lot of carbs and store that water weight. It doesn't mean that you've gained fat. And so that's what I want to talk about. It's that pure fat loss. And so as you're striving to lose fat, we want to see between 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. And so that's what we set out for her as well. And we mapped it all out and dialed it in. And so the desire just to lose weight was kind of taken away because it's really more about we want to lose fat. We don't want to lose our precious muscle mass that's in that process. Just from slashing calories and doing a bunch of cardio, you could do that. But ultimately, what do we really want? We want physique changes. We want our bodies to look good. You don't want to just lose a bunch of weight and not have the physique that is sufficient for you, right? You want to be able to perform well and feel healthy. And so in order to perform well and feel healthy, this longevity type approach, what really matters, like how you feel, right, is that we maintain as much of that muscle mass as possible. We keep your metabolism functioning as high as we possibly can. As you lose weight, when you're in that process, when you're in a caloric deficit, you will feel you will see your metabolism typically go down a little bit. That's part of the process, but we don't want to tank it. That would be really, 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 really bad. Not very fun, right? So we want to maintain as much as possible. So focusing on between 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week is going to be healthiest for maintaining muscle mass performance and keeping the metabolism at that level. So let's just run some numbers, right? So if you're 250 pounds, that's 1.25 to 2.5 pounds per week of weight loss that we would be actually seeing. So if we're applying the body fat loss to weight, that's what that would equate to as far as overall pounds. So, that's someone that's 250 pounds. Someone who's 200 pounds, that's the 1 to 2 pound mark. So we may see anywhere between 1 to 2 pounds per week, and we want to see kind of that rate. Now, you may go a couple weeks where you don't lose anything, and that's okay. There's multiple factors as to why that may be. You could have, because again, it could just be stress, which increases cortisol in the system. Cortisol doesn't make you store fat, but it does help the body store water, right? It's what's going to make the body store some water. So you may see that scale kind of hover and hold if you're really stressed out because of work, because of family, because of life, or you're just not getting quality sleep, which can be affected by cutting some of your calories as well. Some of that evening sleep doesn't go as well for some people. And so we really have to monitor a lot of these different things and some of the hormones that are causing this to know why that is, right? Which is why having a coach and having someone work with you as you look at these different metrics. And this is why it can't just be a calorie counting system or just a macro based system. Or if someone just hands you a meal plan or just hands you your macros or your calories, we've got an issue there, right? They're not actually helping you see the bigger picture and finding out that change. And so you may see a plateau or what feels like a plateau for a couple of weeks where the scale doesn't move. So it doesn't mean, 200 pounds, we've calculated this out, it's 1 to 2 pounds per week, right? It may be that you're at a level for a few weeks. And I truly don't feel that a plateau is a plateau until it is longer than 6 weeks that you have maintained because there are so many different factors like stress, sleep, and all these different things, right? So let's go a little bit further. So someone who's 150 pounds, right? It's between 0.75 and 1.5 pounds. Like that's not much, right? But yet it's huge for someone that is 150 pounds versus someone who's 250 pounds. They have a 100-pound difference. So regardless of kind of height and these other things that sure play a huge role, it's 0.75 pounds. So, 3/4 of a pound per week is kind of on our focus there to see, because that 3/4 of a pound, is going to show up a lot more than 3/4 of a pound would on someone who currently weighs 250 pounds and losing weight. They would need that higher amount, closer to that 2.5 pounds per week to show the same amount on their body. And so that's where we're looking for is what is the physique going to do when we lose that body fat without losing the muscle mass? That would be great, right? Or is maintaining as much of it as we possibly can during that process. So that's what I kind of want you to be able aware of. And someone who's 135 pounds, it's only 0.6 to 1.3 pounds per week is kind of our rate of loss that we're looking for. So with that, you can see how, a pound is 3,500 calories, and we need to find a way to remove about 3,500 calories from our diet each week. Now, how we create that is up to us. We're working with that coach, but ultimately that's going to yield right around a pound of weight loss per week if we are in that caloric deficit. Lots of other factors can play, but that's typically where we want to be. So how do you figure out your starting calories, right? And this was the other part of it, because this client and I, we are going to be working on tracking calories to start, because she's coming from a really solid base of already understanding that whole foods are really, really powerful and necessary. She's getting good quality protein with every single meal. She's getting about 4 to 5 servings of vegetables every single day. So she's getting the micronutrients, vitamins, and the fiber that her body needs. And that's what you have to start with, I personally believe, at least. No dogmatic approach or black and white or anything like that, because it's assessing the individual and starting where you are at is critical. But she had that fundamental base, right? And I feel that is absolutely critical before you dive into something like calories. But for some people, being able to see the calories is really important as well to kind of get in a frame of mind and reference point. So, some people are all about habits only. Some people are all about, you've got to count calories, track macros only. And I feel like it's kind of like a hybrid approach. You've got to utilize what is needed. And oftentimes it's that you start with just making sure you've got proper big blocks, right? You're getting protein with every meal. You're getting veggies. You're building these as habits and kind of settling in to some consistent meals, like 3 to 4 main breakfast, lunch, and dinner options that are your go-tos that you know are healthy and that you already enjoy, that are going to help you meet your goals. And then from there, we can go into looking at the actual caloric breakdown, because you may find that just making some switches and not even having to think about counting calories and all these kind of things gives you some wins. And I've seen it time and time again with hundreds of clients where we've just focused on, these habits. And then eventually you do want to get to a place, or maybe not necessarily get to a place, but you can get to a place where you want to take it up one more notch, or you're not seeing some of the results, and it's really important to now actually track so you have a better understanding, right? Because without actually looking at what something has as far as the total number of calories, what its breakdown is of protein, carbs, and fats, we can have these gaps that we're just completely unaware of. And that's all this is doing, is opening your eyes to some awareness. So that's where she was definitely at. She had these big blocks, but she was kind of going, I don't understand why, I've been stuck at 175 pounds for the last year. I feel like I eat really healthy, and she definitely does. But there were a lot of extra calories that were sneaking in there. And so this was an opportunity for someone at this level to be able to track calories for a while and be able to see that, so that we can apply that back into creating these habits where, honestly, for her, it's going to be removing some of the excess fat that was sneaking in. And it was healthy fat, but it was just pushing her over, so therefore she wasn't losing any more weight. And her initial thought was to slash a bunch of calories, and so that she could lose the 2 pounds, but that was also going to be too aggressive for her, and we want to see for her between 0.8 and 1.75 pounds per week. So how do you find your starting calories, right? And that was another question that was recently asked by a friend of mine who is heavily into bodybuilding, and just kind of going like, how do I figure out like where my starting calories are? Like, I'm hitting the gym, I've got a good understanding of that, but it's time to turn this up. I've got this event here, and I'm just not sure exactly where my calories are at. I'm like, cool, let's figure that out, right? So here's the best way, straight up, track them. So sorry to break it to you in that regard, but ultimately, if you track all of your calories without manipulating what you're currently eating, if you do that for 14 days is ideal, but even if you only did for 7 days, right, get a full week, including your weekend, then you would actually get a frame of where you're at. And that's honestly the best way. Now, so many people just jump online and they do these calculators and all that kind of stuff. But let's run through this. Like for me, right, I currently weigh 166 pounds at this point in time. And sure, yeah, that can fluctuate, like I said, 2 to 5 pounds, anywhere in that little range there, depending on what I'm eating and what I'm doing activity wise. I have a nice big reset meal, enjoy a pizza, and the next day I'll be up 3 or 4 pounds just from the sodium intake and the carbs, and I'm just storing more water weight. 2 days after that, as I've been eating the way I always do, it's right back down. So that's kind of the beautiful thing, right? It doesn't affect me knowing that the scale is there because it didn't really go up. I was just holding on to more water because of the sodium. So how do you figure out? Yep, track. 100% track every little thing that goes in. And so, for me, when I do tracking like this in this regard, I check in with myself every probably 6 months. I do some tracking just to kind of see where stuff's at, right? And if I were to do that for an entire week standpoint, the last time I did it was about 4 months ago. And I found that I was eating just under 2,500 calories every single day. So that is my true maintenance. That is what's keeping my body at its exact level, right? It was like 2,475 is what it averaged out to be. And so and that's basically 2,200 to 2,300 during the week, and on the weekend, some days up to like 3,000 and stuff like that with pizza and ice cream. And so the beautiful thing is, over the course of that week, it creates that balance right around 2,500 calories. So if I wanted to lose a pound a week, I'd remove right around 500 calories every single day. I would try to, make sure that my protein is not where I'm removing them by any means. It's critical to maintain that protein for maintaining so many things, satiety levels, all the muscle mass and everything like that is absolutely critical, and keep your performance up in the gym. So I would cut some from some of the calories from fats and from carbs, right? kind of depending on where those were at. And we can go into depth on that on another podcast. But ultimately, that's what we were working with her. It's kind of that same regard. So we're tracking that first entire week to give us what is your true maintenance, where are you actually at, and then we can pull from there. Now, if you don't have that kind of time, right? You're like, nope, I need to start losing right now because I got an event in 7 weeks. And just a new client that I just started as of Monday, yesterday, when I'm recording this, got a red carpet event. And so we're just 100% go. It's just dive in, which is a challenge because I would love to get an exact measurement of where he's at, but we've got to work with the parameters that we've got. So paying really high attention to a lot of these other details on a daily basis, as opposed to a weekly basis, just to see if anything's going to change, and we're hopefully going to get him to exactly where he wants to be for looking great red carpet. And so in that case, right, there's these generic maintenance calculators. They're simply going to take your body weight, and it's going to have a multiplier of anywhere between 12 to 16 based on your activity level. So sedentary means you don't train. Light activity means you're doing a little bit of training. Active means you're training often, and vigorous means you're really doing like CrossFit like 6 days a week, or you're an athlete, or you're in a physique sport where you're doing like 5-6 days of training per week. And so it's so easy to say like, all right, so I'm extremely active, me personally, right? And because I work out 5-6 days a week and I walk the dog every single morning, so that's my body weight, 166 times 14, right? So because it's anywhere between 12 to 16 based on these ranges, so it gives you 2,300 calories per day basically. But if we look back at like what I was tracking as my true maintenance, it's 2,500 calories a day, right? 2,475 is what it was. That's a big difference, 150 calories under. So if I'm then cutting 500 calories from this 23, right? Yes, I'm going to lose weight faster, but at that rate, now that I'm cutting on a more severe level, I'm going to be hungrier, right? I'm going to be probably a little bit crankier. I'm not giving my body as much time to adapt. So I could honestly be cutting a little deeper into a deficit, 650 calories a day. So I could be starting to affect hormone levels, sleep levels, and your just chances of sabotage just spike when you're doing it this way, right? So I don't recommend just jumping on and using that. Instead, if you've got to, right, and you don't have time to track, use a baseline multiplier, which is just your body weight times 10, right? So for me, 166 times 10. So it gives me, 1,660 calories. And then use an activity multiplier. So your baseline multiplier times an activity multiplier. So that would look like lifestyle plus training. So if you have a sedentary lifestyle, right? Most office workers, and you're driving to work and that's all you do. Don't walk, don't even get like 2,000 steps a day, but you work out 3 to 6 times per week. That's actually where you would fall. Anywhere from 1.3 to 1.6 would be your activity multiplier, right? Now then there's someone who's lightly active, and this is actually where I fall, right? So someone who's lightly active, they go for a walk. They have pretty much a desk job where they're just at a desk most of the day. And that's what I do when I'm recording, creating a lot of stuff. I stand at a standing desk, but still I'm not moving a lot. Someone who's active is someone like a nurse, a veterinarian, firefighter, farmer. And then on top of that, with their activity multiplier, they're training like at least 4 times a week, right? I'm light activity, my friends, but I still train 6 days a week. So it fits into that. And then someone who's like vigorously active, so very active, honestly, they're like a landscaper, a roofer, a brick mason, a carpenter. They're lifting and moving a lot. So I think we often get really confused about where our level is at with that. So let's go through the multipliers. Sedentary, anywhere between 1.3 to 1.6. Lightly active, 1.5 to 1.8. That's where most Americans are going to fall, my friends. And so I just do 1.5. Active, 1.7 to 2.0, and very active, 1.9 to 2.2. So if we do this calculation, here's what's funny. Take my baseline, 165, right, or 166, I'm sorry, times 10, right? So that gives me 1,660 calories. And then I take my activity multiplier. Remember, I'm lightly active, but I do train 6 days a week. So I multiply by 1.5. It gives me 2,475 calories. The exact same. right? Now, it won't usually be exactly the same. I thought it was hilarious when I did that. But I just want to show you that's probably the best way to go. So I'm going to link up in the show notes a way to do that to help you out. But I just kind of wanted to cover those main things is like, how many calories or how do I figure out my baseline calories? And then from there, you can subtract usually 500 a day if your goal is about 1 pound per week. And just being realistic that for most people, it is about 1 pound per week. And that's why I wanted to touch on that rate of weight loss aspect. So, hope that helps. As always, feel free to send any questions my way, joseph@truthoftransformation.com. Reach out if you need coaching, ready to take nutrition by the horns and just really dive in and get into control and avoid sabotage and dive into stress eating and all of these factors that can be a struggle for a lot of people. That's the specialty. That's what I love helping people with, is getting your mindset into a place where it's no longer controlling you and you're no longer start-stop. You're no longer sabotage. It's just a way of life. It's a way of being. And ultimately, your starting point isn't when you reach your goal of losing the weight. It's once you reach the goal of losing the weight, that's where you begin the real journey. And it's understanding that and that we dive in and do that together. So having that support, having that coach. So as always, Coach Joseph, peace be the journey. I'm out.